Yeah. And there's a difference between imposter syndrome and being an imposter. An imposter deceives on purpose. They know they're a fake. They know they're a fraud. Okay. And they're not afraid of being an imposter. Okay. Imposters don't have imposter syndrome. They have nefarious intent.
Realize that I have an addictive personality. There's things I can really get latched onto. And maybe the deepest addiction I've experienced is what you just said, feeling like I can't do something until I have all the information. So it's like an addiction to accumulating more and more information. And I tell myself that I can't do something unless I have everything prepared. And to your point, it's like not until I recognize, like, hey, I'll never get to that place. And what I'm going through now is having the right values, knowing the right direction that the compass should be pointed, but kind of winging it and figuring it out as I go, which is scary and it's different. But man, there's so many things that I have you to thank for I think getting to a place where it's like, yeah, it's okay. Not this thing that I put as, a necessity that has to be in place. It's an illusion. You don't really have to have that. So.
Ready versus ready enough.
Ready versus ready enough.
Ready versus ready enough. There's a variety of ways to talk about the imposter syndrome, which everybody's been bitten by that thing hard more than once. And perfection syndrome is imposter syndrome.
How so?
Because everything has to be perfect, otherwise I'm not going to put myself out there. It's a sneaky way of not being seen. Because that's what imposter syndrome, that's a big part of that. It's a fear of being seen. The fear of being seen tanks more coaches' careers than everything else combined. I mean, it's not email funnels that are kicking coaches' asses. It's the fear of being seen. And, and imposter syndrome, if like we've been delving more and more into this because for a variety of reasons. One, it's an interesting avenue or channel to explore outside of the victim mentality, which we talk about. You know how much we talk about that, and so the the trifecta of mindset hell is the victim mentality, imposter syndrome, and the telephobia, the fear of not being good enough. And those things they're so intertwined and interlaced. They're strolling down the street holding hands. Yeah, and there's a difference between imposter syndrome and being an imposter. An imposter deceives on purpose. They know they're a fake. They know they're a fraud. Okay, and they're not afraid of being an imposter. Okay, imposters don't have imposter syndrome. They have nefarious intent, and what most people experience as imposter syndrome is a mixture of beginner syndrome and the fear of not being good enough. You put those two things together, and it'll pucker people up real fast, make them flinch, make them do Cirque du Soleil mental gymnastics to figure out how to not do the thing, not put themselves out there, not get it completely right the first time. I mean, I'm on a rant on this thing. I understand, and so the second half of level 2, in the second half of that, this is the last part of level 2, is building and delivering Enlifted workshops, or just workshops in general. And so I taught that class for group 11 on Monday, and the questions start with when and where are you going to do it. Get it on the calendar first, and then because here once again, I'm gonna wait till I've got the whole thing perfect, and I know exactly how the entire workshop's gonna go. I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna rummage around in the details, and then I'm gonna go find a place to do it, and I'll decide a time, and then I'll market it. No, do it the exact opposite way, and it'll happen 95% of the time. More than that, really. You know?
Why do you think this is something that is so pervasive? Imposter syndrome, the telephobia, victim mentality. Why is this something that we're having to talk about so much? Because I agree with what you're saying personally, and then as you look out, it's like, yeah, I mean, how many great ideas are there versus like how many have been executed on? And I think that's just something I personally like to know. Is like, what's the genealogy of this? Like, how do we arrive at this point? But what do you think?
The thing gets set up before we even know it's happening. So there's a glitch in our language. There's answers to that. One of them is that our language, most people's language, which is an inheritance, is working against them. And most people have not had any formal training in how to use their words consciously and constructively. So what they end up doing is going with the first thing that shows up in their head and not thinking about it. As the great Alan Watts says, it's my favorite Alan Watts quote, and there's a lot of good Alan Watts quotes. When you learn to think about your thinking, you become alive in a new way. And most people are not thinking about their thinking, they're just thinking. And just like we were talking to, who's a gentleman out there we were talking to about
Chance.
soft talk? Okay, smart guy. And before he knew about soft talk, let me guess, he didn't know to pay attention to those words, and he hadn't connected the dots about how much they were influencing how he felt and how he sounded to other people. And so most people know they're getting in their own way a little bit. They don't know to the extent of it. And we can extrapolate that out into language. Most people know that language is important. Oh, it's and you hear things like, well, it's more of how you say what you say. That one's easy to dispel, by the way. And yeah, so most people would say, it's important what you say, how you talk to yourself, and then that's where the conversation stops. Okay, as well as I do, we get those words on paper and start staring at them and slowing the story down so we can connect the dots between what we're thinking and what we're saying and how those words are influencing us and other people. Then the game is revealed, and if you keep playing that game, you're going to win the breathing game. And if you win the breathing game, then it's a lot easier to make moves, move things forward, take action. Action dispels overwhelm. I've heard that before. So one of those answers is that due to a lack of education about how our words and stories are built and employed and deployed, most people are just sitting ducks to it, and they're just swimming in the outcome. They're not driving the bus.
What do you mean when you said language is inherited?
We inherit these sounds that come out of our face. And it's just as no one has to tell us, okay, Spencer, it's time to learn to walk. And no one has to say those words. There's something in us, some innate wisdom that starts putting that puzzle together as soon as we're out, right? And it starts with the head. It's like we're trying to raise our head up, and that thing's bobbling around, and we don't know what we're doing. Okay, it's like when I was learning to walk, I didn't know I was learning to walk. Okay, I wasn't pep talking myself to like, all right, buddy,
you can do it.
You can do. Yeah, exactly.
You put your mind to it.
Yeah, you've been here before, Mark. You can just give it one more try. No, and we don't know what we're doing yet. We're obsessed with it. We're how much are children obsessed with learning to walk? I mean, it's a lot of the mental real estate. and from rolling around to trying to get up to falling over, and then you stand up and everybody goes nuts for the first time because that was your first walk, and then you're still not any good at it. But like 5 years old, you're not anywhere near as good at it as you're going to be when you're 25. Okay, we haven't even started talking about running. Okay, really? I mean, when do kids start running? Like 2, 3? Like I'm not like running into walls, like running into stuff, right?
Running ineffectively.
Ineffectively. Yeah. That's another point. Walking extremely ineffectively. But we don't have imposter syndrome there. We don't have imposter syndrome when we're learning to do.
It's expected.
You know, we just.
Of course, you're going to be terrible at walking.
There's no story in the way yet. Because we're still putting and it's the same thing with the words. It's the same thing with the sounds. As soon as kids start playing with these sounds, that these big people that are some part of us, some smart part of us says, hey, listen, there's 2 things that you got to do, homie. You got to learn to walk, and you got to learn to talk. And and so as soon as we start making trying to make noises, the same noises that they're making. I mean, I grew up in Virginia. I grew up speaking English with a slight Southern drawl. It's like, where did those sounds come from? The people around me. It's people don't grow up in Virginia in the suburbs of Richmond and end up speaking Mongolian by accident. It's like, it's an inheritance. And where did that come from? It came from the people that they grew up around. And so the quality of people's words and the inflection, influences how children use their words, and also breathing patterns. So we inherit our parents' breathing patterns. That might sound strange until you think about it for a second. I mean, very rarely does a chilled out, parasympathetic dominant, cool, calm, and collected, everything's great kind of breathing person come out of a high-stress environment. No, it's usually the exact opposite, and it's called entrainment. You can look that up. It's in nature. It's in nature. Swiss clock. All the clocks in a shop, in a clock shop, will come into resonance. I believe that's the word, with the strongest clock in the shop. And so parents, they're bigger. Their energy's bigger. They're bigger. They're physically bigger. Their energy is more mature, and they're calling the shots. I mean, we talk to a lot of the Enlifted coaches have children. We're like, just get around your kids and breathe better. Just breathe a little lower, a little slower, and watch what happens. And the amount of time, I stopped counting a while ago, the amount of times that people say something happened with my teenager, and I just stopped and I took a couple of smooth breaths, and you yourself too. Yeah. And they look. They said, I gave myself time to think. They gave themselves space and clarity. When the breath is trapped in the chest, that's when people, quote unquote, fly off the handle, say things they don't mean. Listening goes way down. The worse people breathe, the worse listeners they are. So to circle back to where does language is an inheritance, that's what I mean when I say language is an inheritance. We inherit the sounds that our parents make, and for better and for worse.
Yeah, I mean that thing that you're talking about with little kids. We have a 10, 7, and a 5-year-old. Even my parenting strategies have changed, where you first have to get them and yourself in a parasympathetic state. I mean, there's some scripture that talks about, like, hey, the parent needs to go out and find a rod before they spank their kid. And I don't know where that is. Isn't that something?
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
It is basically a lesson of walk it out. And
it's a lesson of calm yourself down before you punish your kid. It's a lesson of, like, hey, control your breathing before you do something that you'll regret. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I'll even, being aware of this, try to raise the temperature, try to raise the thermostat of my family to see, like, if it's possible. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. And in the dynamic, like you said, the inheritance, the way that kids interact with parents has a little to do with language. It has a lot to do with body language. It has even more to do with just sympathetic state. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Jeremy is a big fan of yours, big fan. And he said something to me along these lines that you told him that English is a slave language. What do you mean by that? Because he tried to explain it, but I want to hear, because I think it's along this same line of like inheriting the language of enslavement with the words that we use.
One of my good friends in Thailand, Dr. William Evans, he told me that once. He was a Ayurvedic doctor. And he said the English language is a slave language. And I stopped myself from asking what he meant because I was like, I'm going to noodle on that one myself. And I do have a conspiratorial bone in my body. Yes, I admit. Okay. And do I have
Welcome.
do I have any proof that some people, and you can, I was talking about this on the Cosmic Giggle 10 years ago, that documentary. Yeah, so it's actually with some of those dudes this on Tuesday. David Weber got married, but did a group of people get together and think of a way to organize, orchestrate words so people enslave themselves, and so and you've heard divide and conquer. That's not quite right. Okay, it's actually confuse and conquer. Confuse. You want to confuse a group of people, and then you can divide them. So confuse, divide, then conquer. And the English language, the way it's used right now, and so I've thought about this from a variety of different angles, and I don't have any conclusive evidence or opinions on it, other than the fact that people can enslave themselves and will enslave themselves with how the English language is used almost exclusively today. So there's a Taoist saying, it says, without rope, people bind themselves, and it's the same thing. And English doesn't have a patent on it. Okay, because there's plenty of ways that you can piss yourself off in French. There's plenty of ways that you can script the victim mentality in Cantonese. Okay, there's all kinds of ways that you can create anxiety and indecision and trap your breath in your chest in Turkish. I know because I've spent about 3 months there in Istanbul doing work in yoga circles, helping people with their stories. Some of those people did not speak English, and still four-stepping works. And so I had a translator, and they're like, telling me a story about something, and I'm like, okay, right. Have you ever written that down? And they're like, no, in Turkish. And so they do, and we four-step the thing in Turkish. I speak no Turkish, okay, but it works, okay, because it's working on the mechanics of story. Okay, that's one of the. There's several cool things about Enlifted and four-stepping, and then you can just and I'll circle back to the enslavement things. And it's the chicken or the egg, man. I don't know. I don't know, because here's what I'm pretty convinced about. And I say pretty consciously, is that if what came first, the stress response or the language that inflicts the stress response? Because I can entertain a scenario where if for whatever reason there was a lot of inherited stress over generations, and you can look that up, epigenetics, that's an interesting thing to research, that the language would reflect this perpetual inherited stress response. Okay, or the words just got put together in a way where somebody blamed somebody for something once upon a time. It's like, Adam. Eve made me eat that apple. Eve made me eat that apple, and now you've got the first projection, okay, right? And so now you've got somebody, and there's the victim and the villain in my imagination. That's stressful, and she needs to pay for that. I start gritting my teeth. It's good I took my gum out. And I'm breathing in my chest, and then guess what? It's called a thought train for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I say, they need to respect me more. And then the next thought in my head is, I've got so many opportunities. That's not how that happens. It's, they need to respect me more. Why don't they respect me more? Who do they think they are? Man, nothing ever works out for me. Just like my dad said, you can't trust anybody these days. Man, I'll never be successful. And then it turns into a thought train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's one thought leads to a similar thought because they're hooked together. It's like, no, I mean, does anybody, how often does somebody say, man, I can't keep living like this? And I love my wife so much. Like, that's the exact next thought. It's not how it happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? So somehow, some way, we're telling collectively, generally speaking, people are using their words to enslave themselves in a grandiose, stress-inducing, victim-centric. Baskin-Robbins got nothing on all the flavors of the victim mentality. There's all kind. I mean, bitterness, okay, anxiety, like bitterness coming from tons of projections, because that's where projections take you. If you keep walking down that road, eventually you get to bitterness, and that shows on somebody's face. It's if somebody's been bitter. You know somebody who's been bitter for 15 years.
Oh yeah.
And I was going there too, man. I was for sure. That's like you wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, anxiety. Indecision. We'll just go indecision because we were talking about soft talk earlier. You thinks and maybes and mights and sorts and guesses, and you can cripple yourself with indecision, and that's extremely stressful because if you do it for long enough, then you identify yourself as indecisive, and once you identify yourself as anything indecisive, I identify myself as punctual. I'm a punctual person. I plotted and schemed from leaving Virginia to be here at 9 a.m. today, and I was 4 minutes late, and I was like, man. So yeah, but that's because I decided to be punctual. I've practiced being punctual, and now I see I am. And then, somebody soft talks themselves for a prolonged period of time. Eventually, they identify themselves as indecisive, and then they get better at it. They get better at it. People can get better at thinking people are out to get them, or people can get better at literally seeing no opportunity.
Like world class.
Third degree black belt
Mm-hmm.
in you can't get ahead these days, and so yeah, words.
I need to introduce you because selfishly I want to go deep, but I won't assume that everybody knows everything about you that I know about you. And I have a lot of love for you. And instead of sitting here acting like I don't know much about you, I feel like I know a lot about you. Your name is Mark England. You're from Virginia. You were an aspiring MMA fighter that was so committed to that path that you relocated to Thailand. In Thailand, you had a career-ending injury. From that career-ending injury, you were able to, thankfully, experience some very dark times, which catapulted you into this career path that you're on now. Investigating mindset, figuring out how to incorporate breath work, how to incorporate narrative, story, which titrates down to words. And you have started a company called Enlifted that I've joyfully participated in, both the level 1 and the level 2 curriculum. It's one of the best things I've ever done. It's not just the curriculum, and it's not just the tools that are tangible and instantly applicable, but it was one of the most fun times I've had. Like, there's so many things that I want to compliment you on, but one of the things was how something that can be so heavy and serious was really fun and oftentimes like really silly. And it was wonderful. And even preconceived notions that I had for how lame Zoom is, it totally changed the way that I looked at that. It reestablished how I could connect with people. It changed, I think, for the better, the trajectory of how I want to coach coaches. And there's so many wonderful things that I want to give you credit for. And if I don't say anything else, I just want to say, like, what an honor it is to have you here. What a privilege I feel like it is to have your number in my phone and to text you and to be a part of the at large Enlifted community. And yeah, I'm just really excited for the conversation we had. What did I miss? I'm sure I missed 1,000 things.
Thank you for all that.
You're welcome.
I've said this more times than I can count. I love the people I meet through this work. We're ahead of the curve as it stands right now, and you can totally make Zoom fun. It's like, and you know what a big part of that is? Arguably the biggest is me looking forward to class. I look forward to class. And then also that also dovetails in what I'm about to say, or what I just said is, the people I meet through this work. So I had 4 sales calls in the car yesterday, and one guy wanted to talk to me about coming on his podcast. So 5 calls. All those people were very interesting, very unique. What we do in the certs, most people would pay not to do that work. They'd be like, oh, let me get this straight. You want me to pick up that heavy-ass pen and get the scary words out of my head, to get the scary stories out of my head, and write them on paper, and then I got to look at them and then read that stuff out loud and feel those things again? No, how much not to do that?
It's probably good that you don't preview that they're going to read their Billy story in a robot voice.
No.
It's probably good that you save that as a surprise.
It's
not a great sales tactic.
No, not at all. Yeah, that the second half of, you've been there. It's like, and I know that's coming. I know it's coming, and I also forget that's coming, which allows me to be present. But I look forward to class, man. I look forward to class because, and this also dovetails into the imposter syndrome. Because you can, and I'm just talking to you, the person who's listening that's potentially a coach, or you are a coach, or you're thinking about getting into coaching. Look at your coaching as a craft. Look at it as a practice. And so when I get to come to class, I get to hone my craft, because there's a different version of me on Cert 21 than there was on Cert 1. Mm-hmm. And there's a different, I'm different and I'm better on, we're about to graduate 39. And looking at transformational wordsmithing, because Enlifted who cares about Enlifted? Enlifted doesn't have a patent on making stories better. That's all we do. Make stories better. I don't believe in weak people. I don't believe in strong people. I believe in weak stories, and I believe in strong stories. And then if you keep going, there's only strong stories, because someone's story of being weak is a very strong story. Get it?
Yeah.
Somebody's story.
My brain just exploded, but yeah.
Yeah. It's weird when you get to get there. It's like the person that is, okay, yeah, fentanyl ain't helping, but it's the nuclear level victim mentality that is so weakened their standards for their life that they're out, you know, on the corner of San Pedro and 3rd down in Los Angeles, which is the scariest place I've ever been in my entire life. And I've been in some very interesting border towns on the Mekong River, and like I lived over in I've left and stayed gone for a while. Nothing came close to the corner of San Pedro and 3rd.
It's almost like this invisible like aura.
I've feared for my not my safety, okay, because I was driving through in a
Armored car.
no, the exact opposite, a Jeep with the top down. And fortunately, it was early in the morning. And okay, so everybody, to the corner of San Pedro and 3rd, it is ground zero for the most depressing homeless encampment in LA. I mean, they got typhoid down there, dude. They got medieval diseases down there, bro. And it looks like it. Like it looks like World War Z. And so the stories that got them there were very strong. Somebody's story of, you know, I'm a weak person is very strong. It's just so, you know, yeah. So when you, so transformational wordsmithing, I approach it, I appreciate it, and teach it as a practice, as an art, as a craft. I am a craftsman. I'm an artist. Okay, and I'm 16 years into a 50-year career. Okay, I actually went into it's been in there for 6 years now, and I only checked this past week. I did it on a whim on one of the one-on-one calls. I went into my calendar and scrolled down to January 17th, 2057, because I put that in there as my last day of work.
Sounds like a made up year.
I know, right? You start getting into like the 2030s, and then you're into like 2041, and you're like, wonder what Klaus Schwab will be able to pull off by. And then you're like, well, fuck that dude. And then you eat the bugs, Klaus. And then you're like into the late 40s, and then the 50s and 2057. I'm like, man. And
I don't even think, what's the movie with Stallone and Wesley Snipes? The futuristic movie?
Oh, yeah.
I don't even think that movie goes to that year.
Idiocracy.
Demolition Man.
It's
like 10 years away.
That's 10 years away.
Yeah. Not 50.
Bro, I'm an 80s kid, man. I'm an 80s. Yeah, so what's that going to look like? I'll tell you what that's going to look like. I'll tell you what that will look like if you want me to later.
Yeah.
Because there's one or two ways. There's one of two things that's going to happen. And I know this. It's weird. Oh, and by the way, like, and also everybody, take whatever I say with a grain of salt, because you got to know who you're listening to. I'm a former elementary school PE teacher with a handful of MMA fights. I'm not cracking nuclear fission. So it's like, yeah. So when you approach transformational wordsmithing or changing stories, and you see it helping someone with their mindset, those are all the same ways of saying the same thing. When you approach it as a craft and an art and a practice, then it's something that you can get better at, and for me, it alleviates me thinking that I need to be perfect in order to help somebody with their story, because it's a craft, okay? It's a practice. It's like jujitsu, right? And that right there will take a very interesting flavor of pressure and stress off of someone, because no one's life is perfect. And if someone thinks that their life has to be perfect in order for them to help someone or be a good coach, then being an all the right answers coach is right around the corner, and no one has all the right answers for anybody. And if you think you do, you don't. And if you say you do, you know you don't. You actually know you don't. In the back of your mind, you know you don't have all the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the imposter syndrome is just waiting to jump out from behind a dumpster and pimp hand you in the mouth. So it's like, it's how do we, and then if that stays there long enough, then you know, like I said earlier, the imposter syndrome, fear of being seen, it it gets more people to quit than anything else.
You've helped me redefine what it is to be a coach. And I think I was, through trial and error, coming to this realization, but you helped fast track that for a lot of people, a coach and a consultant, they think are the exact same thing, right? You go to a consultant for their expertise, and they show up to evaluate what's going on. They bless you with their knowledge, and then they move on down the road. And I believe that a better definition of coaching is what you just alluded to. You're not the expert. You've committed to going as deep as this person wants to go. You have tools, you have questions, you have protocol that will allow this person to arrive at the revelations that they probably already possessed. And that, to me, just to echo what you said, I will never get tired of. I was tired of coaching the air squat in 2008.
That's my quote of the day. So,
but this thing that we're talking about, I couldn't agree more. It's like unlocking a way for someone to be the best version of themselves across the different dimensions of their life, and realizing that you're not responsible for much there is an amazingly powerful thought. And
it's heaven.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, it's heaven. Yeah, go ahead.
I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, because my mission is to start to coach more and more versus like just performance. And so stress management, emotional regulation, mindset, all of these things that to a fitness coach feel very taboo. Who am I to be able to coach this stuff? And as I was giving my my monologue to someone yesterday, they interrupted me and it's like, how could you do that? How could you say that you're able to do that? You're not a psychiatrist. And I had to explain to them the difference of what we just talked about. Like, hey, I'm not showing up as an expert. I'm not showing up making any recommendations to you at all.
Or diagnosis.
Right. None of that.
They can use the DSM.
And you could tell like their brain had never thought of a coach looking like that. And I credit you for a lot of that thought process that I've been able to take and really step into, just like we said earlier, areas that, of course, I'm an imposter with. And that's one of the things that I've enjoyed just reconciling. It's like, of course, I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Of course, if I've never done something before, I'm not going to be that great at it. And to almost flip that on its head and to embrace those feelings of potentially messing up and the feelings of, who am I? It's like, oh, I must be on the right track here. I must be doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's been a wonderful way to change something that has definitely kept me from progressing at times and encouraging others with the same thought.
There's, for most people, now it's called ponerology, it's the study of psychopaths. And there's 3% of the population that are psychopaths. Everybody else, that's who I'm talking to. There's something baked into the majority of people that when someone is transforming, some part of them is in the alchemical fire. Some part's getting burned off and some part is being forged new. Some smart part of us goes, hey, Knuckles, pay attention to that. There's something there for you. And that was the first time I'd ever seen it, was in 2003 at the spa, which is where I started working in January 17th, 2007. Okay, that's why my last day on the job is January 17th, 2057. And even me in that, how would I describe that? I was just furious. I was furious with the world, okay, because I was wronged. And even in that state, I was able to go, that was cool. When the woman went from, he did that to me to he did that to himself. And the whole story about this bad breakup, which it was, she didn't need to be thinking about it 9 times a day for the past 4 years, which she said she was, okay, got turned on its head. And I fell in love on sight. And after 10 years of doing it professionally, 2017, I got off stage at TEDx and just knocked that shit out of the park, right? It was a big deal. And I looked around and I said, because I was a horrible student, dude. I wasn't just a disruptive student. I was a destructive student. I plotted and schemed how I was just – I let off more stink bombs in high school than anyone ever. My grandmother would send us cases. Yeah, dude. They how often
it's a generational sin. It's grandma's
dude,
fault.
It's grandma's fault. A telephobia. Yeah, I mean, I let off so many stink bombs in high school for just months on end. They finally, because they were trying to catch me and all this stuff, and they finally came across the loudspeaker. When did you ever hear in high school them come across the loudspeaker and ask nicely for someone to just, whoever's doing this, please stop. Please stop. So anyway, I was a terrible student.
A terrorist.
A terrorist, yes. Yeah. I went jihad on first a fatwa, because you got to have a fatwa first. That's when you issue a warning, and if they don't heed the warning,
stink
then
bomb
you go
terrorist
straight on to jihad. And you can look that up. And so anyway, I'm just saying that I had a problem staying focused. Imagine that. I had a problem focusing on things that I found boring. And so I told myself the story that I'm a dum-dum. And, okay, well, if I'm going to be a dum-dum, then I'm going to be a cool dum-dum. And I'm going to get the girls. I'm going to get in fights. I'm going to have a big, loud Jeep. And because if I'm not smart, I can't compete in that arena. Then I'm going to do the other things. And so anyway, yeah, so when I saw that, I've never had anything hold my attention like that. So 2 things really, jiu-jitsu and that. But the career for jiu-jitsu is like, I'm not going to be crushing it at 68 years old, right? This is different. So anyway, we're going to come way full circle back to something that you mentioned about the person. Well, you're not a psychiatrist. You're not a psychotherapist. Okay, I got an answer for that. Or I got a thing. I got something for him there. Anyway, 10 years in, doing this full time, I had yet to commit. I got off stage at TEDx. I looked around and I said, I don't have any more questions about what I'm going to do with my professional life. This thing has held my attention and given me so much in return across the board, professionally, socially, financially, the whole thing. Adventure, purpose, meaning, the whole thing. I was like, I commit to 50 years. And you've heard of NLP?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I went and got my practitioner NLP in 2011 in London with Richard Bandler, who's one of the founders. Then I went back the next year. With the G, yeah. I can talk about that. I went on
Love to.
I spent about $250,000 flying around and parking myself next to the founders. I got to 8 of the 9 founders of the systems that most impressed me. Not like there's a lot of stuff cool stuff out there that I didn't know about, but those were the ones. And that was 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. And one of them was Richard Bandler in NLP. And then I went back the next year and got my practitioners, master practitioners, in 2012, same place with Richard Bandler. And the thing that I walked out of there with, one thing I walked out of there with, he was on stage. There was like 800 people there. And he goes, knock off my clock, do it exactly like he did it.
Get ready.
He goes, I've been doing this shit for 40 fucking years. Just like that. And he looks like the Penguin. His arms all crimped and like his, I mean, he's still in the game. He's still in the game.
Still out there.
And I thought to myself, I was like, I wonder what that feels like. and then I was screwed.
Mm.
And because there's only one way I'll ever know what that feels like. It's like one of those questions that gets in your head and you're like, damn it. And so I get off stage 2017 and I go, I commit to 50. I'm going to do it for 50 years because I can do this for 50 years. It's got longevity written all over it. So then I started thinking in terms of 50 years in the game, and I started talking about coaching differently. Well, if I'm doing this for 50 years, this is not just coaching. This is a art and a craft. And because I started thinking about it differently and talking about it differently, I started approaching it differently, and then circling back to what that person said, well, you're not a psychologist. You're right. And I didn't need a PhD to create that story of I got to look after myself. No one's there for me. When I was 9 and they sat me down and told me they were getting a divorce. I didn't need a PhD to create that story when I was 9. And I don't need a PhD to pick up a pen and write that story out and change it now.
That's so good.
And you can take out that divorce story. You put in a bullying story and abuse. You didn't need I'm talking to you who's listening. You didn't need a PhD to create that story, and you don't need a PhD to change it. You don't need a PhD to pick up a pen and write it out, and yeah, it's going to sting a little bit, but guess what? You know what? That's nothing compared to bumping up into that thing for the next 30, 40 years. That's the real scary shit if you get honest with yourself. You don't need a story. You don't need a PhD or someone with a PhD to help you change it if you want to. Your mom said don't play with your food. Mark England's telling you play with your words, okay? And then so you get into, and it's a language game. I'm responsible for my clients. I'm responsible for my clients. You know who Paul Chek is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went on his show 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to follow your footsteps and just start asking to be on podcasts.
Tell everybody how this happened.
You asked to be here.
Yeah.
But
I was like, hey, can I come? I'm coming down. Can I come on your show? No, you got to go on the offensive with it. It's like the same thing with Paul Chek. We asked to be introduced to him.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Barbell Shrugged. I didn't know I was asking for Barbell Shrugged, but in 2016, I was like, hey, he's got the best podcast in CrossFit. Like, and that's another thing. If we want to talk about it with coaching or just building an identity, a brand, you got to go on the offensive about it. It's like, oh, I got a certification, and now the people are going to come out of the woodwork, and it's the same thing with opening a gym. I'm sure. I mean, there's some people that walk in and things like that, and then there's the outreach, there's the networking and things like that. Yeah, and so we asked to go on Paul Chek, and it's an honor to go on there once. It's even more one to go back on, and so 18 months later, which I was thinking about when we walked out the door the first time. It's like, okay, when am I going to ask to come back on? Because you got to think about this stuff. People aren't thinking about you, okay? They're thinking about all the stuff they're thinking about. So Paul Chek's not thinking about us, all right? I don't need him to think about us. I'm thinking about us. I'll think about him, okay? We walked out of there, I'm like, 18 months. Lo and behold, 18 months later, I message him and say, hey, here's the follow-up to that conversation, which we got a lot of feedback on. We got some good students and, Paul Chek's. And so it was worth his time to have us back on, right? And so, yeah, we went back on and we played this language game, which is, it's the difference between an unhealthy, it's the difference between, or part of the difference between drama and trauma bonding with your clients and then having a healthy space and, clarity in relationship. So the language game goes like this. I'm responsible for my clients. Okay, great. Write that down, everybody. Read it out loud. and observe how it makes you feel. Perfect. Now, pick up your pen, your magic wand, and scratch out for and put in with. You've got a different approach. I'm responsible with my clients. Because in that language game came out of thin air because someone on, and you were on group 9, 8 or 9, level 2?
I think so, yeah.
So it was 10. She was like, my clients won't do what I want them to do, and I know they've got so much more potential in them, and all, just on and on and on. I'm like, oh right, you're playing the I'm responsible for my clients game, aren't you? And I didn't say that. I was like, okay, well, I see that right in my head. That's a new language game. Great. Write it down. And she goes, oh, I can be responsible for my side of the street, showing up prepared and clear and breathing well and observing the story and not getting pulled into their drama, and while I'm on the clock, be on time and all the things that are professional and making a pro coach, and then also have expectations for my clients. Like, listen, this is more you than me. Okay, I am going to show up and do my very best. Okay, while we're on the clock, and when we're off, you put and then that's got longevity on it, man. Because and I've all the stuff that I bust on in coaching, I've made that mistake so many times. I've made
Sure.
mistakes so many times. It's like,
For sure.
yeah. So
Where do you want this to go?
I want to unlock the breath of humanity. I want to unlock the breath of humanity because that's worth my time, and it's enough of a goal to where it's like, well, shit. The quote is create a goal so large that you can only achieve it when you've become the person that can.
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing has changed me as much as it'll change anybody. It's like in order to fulfill the future requirements of what's happening, I get to change. It's not that I've got to. I get to.
Mm-hmm.
I get to. And it's a damn good reason. Because I'm not about that, the Borg. Dude, I'm not about that shit. The Borg, Star Trek, not a fan. Because that's what humanity plus the victim mentality plus technology, that's where that goes. And fiat currency. And that's where that goes. It goes into so we're looking at 2057. It's either we're getting the Borg or we're getting Star Trek. One of the two. And one of them, we're not going to have autonomy over our thoughts, how humans are, call me old-fashioned. I like making babies the old-fashioned way.
Oh, yeah.
And you just look at the Borg, pull up. They're like, what's the Borg? Pull it up. They got it's the transhumanism. It's the merger of man and machine, and you have a technocratic, overlord or overlords, or you got Star Trek, where the people are still people, and you're zooming around and dancing and go get a suntan and go out on some dates and fire some pulsars at a Klingon that wants to fuck around and find out, and it's like, I mean, it just looks more fun. It just looks more fun, and I mean, I'm
I like that everything you described, that's what a silly goose time looks like to Mark. All those things, little dancing, little suntan, little scrapping.
Yeah, it's like it's an adventure. Listen, having a dumpster fire level entrenched victim mentality, that's not adventurous. Okay?
That's not a silly goose time.
It's not silly goose. That's not no one would want to read that book. Because there's no happy ending. There's no happy ending. It could start out that way, but it just you're living in a broke down RV somewhere.
Outside,
People are like,
outside of CrossFit Central.
I almost do. Yeah. Yeah. No. And so we're gonna make the victim mentality approximately as cool as littering. Because right now it's celebrated, and there are people that want people to feel horrible about themselves, regardless of what side of anything you're on, because that's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a complicated story. Okay,
I
the
think-
devil likes complication.
Yeah, I think even like when somebody said self-care, what I immediately go to is, oh, you just want to feel sorry for yourself. And I know that's not always true. It's like, I need to really focus on myself. It's like, focus on what?
What part of yourself?
Yeah.
Focus on what part of your story.
Uh-huh.
Focus on what words. So if you're focusing on them, you're going to use them repeatedly. And if it's of a stressful nature, then now your breath is trapped in your chest and you're getting a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So when people talk about a revolution, most of the people don't know what they're asking for, because there's a difference. Breath trapped in the chest and you're getting a revolution. It could be in your personal story, personal life. It could be in the community. It could be nationally. It could be globally. Revolution, breath trapped in the chest, stress response, revolution, revolve. Everything's coming back around again. Okay, all the righteous anger, the speculation, the demonization, the guillotines, the collapse, the rebuild, the renaissance, and then it just keeps coming back around. So I did a session with a woman once who her all happened in one weekend. Her and her mom came home, and dad was with somebody in the bedroom, and the thing just exploded immediately. And he kicked her out, and she kicked him out, and they got a divorce. And the girl was like young, and her mom didn't get remarried, and just thought it'd be a good idea to tell her that you can't trust men once or twice a week for the entirety of her childhood and adolescence. So she grows up with that spell in her head, and she goes out and she said, I've had the same relationship with 5 different men. Okay, that is a revolution. Okay, evolution, breath unlocked,
That's
low
so
and
good.
slow. That's forward and different and better. And there's a knock. Like, how many people? I just walked in here. I was here for how many 6 minutes, and you introduced me to 2 people that you've obviously had a big impact on with the words. And if homeboy's taking the soft talk out, then he's breathing better. And if he's breathing better, is that one of your coaches?
Mm-hmm.
If he's breathing better in his personal life, then he's breathing better teaching class. And going back to people's breathing influences other people's breathing. It's what would that look like? What would that look like if you get all biblical about it, you don't need a fraction of the population. You need a homeopathic dose of a population to flip the collective. And if you get enough people unlocking their breath and going from revolution to evolution, because if you're having an evolution, you just need it's got to be better. It's got to be different. It's got to be better. Better words, better story, better breathing, better mindset. That's what mindset is, everybody. Your mindset is the story that you tell yourself. I did this recently. I Googled the definition of mindset.
What did it say?
There's 17 definitions
Yeah.
on the first page, and a lot of them are just.
I like when they use the word in the definition. Mindset is a state of mind. Something just completely ridiculous.
Oh, dude, yes, that's that's half of them.
Yeah.
That's half of them where I can imagine somebody is assigned the task of defining mindset, and they're like, I'm just going to make this so complicated people don't understand it, and they think I'm smart. Okay, that's not smart, right? Have you ever seen a sign like up there anywhere in someone's house that says complicate. No one buys those signs. They're always buying the signs simplify. Okay, I just saw one on Tuesday night in the house in Canunga Lake, outside Asheville, where this guy was having his after party. In the simplify. We have one at the farm, simplify. And that's a calling card. That is a calling card of the victim mentality. Is a big ass complicated story. And then from there, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the answer to our problems, which are so big and complicated, the answer has to be equally as big and complicated. And I'm here to say, no, it's the exact opposite 99% of the time. Get a pen and a piece of paper and somebody wants out, and I'll prove it. Okay, let's get the words out of your head. Okay, just questions. One of the recent workshops, this woman, she was talking fast and didn't know what to do, and I was like, okay, got your pen and paper? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, write down all the questions that you can think of, and she wrote 7. Okay, and I asked her, have you ever written those down before? And she said no. And I said, before they were written down, where were they? She goes, in my head. I'm like, mm-hmm. And then I was like, how many? So you got 7. How many did it feel like when they were in your head? She's like 77. Okay. So and that's what complicated wants. Complicated wants more complicated to walk in the door. It's like Dylan on 90210. I'm just really complicated. Nobody after like 26, nobody wants more complicated people in their life. Do you? It's like, I mean, if you really think about it, you're like, no, I want people that are clear and focused and fun and breathing well and present and productive and add value to my life. Not somebody who's going to suck the time out of my day and hijack my mental real estate. Blah 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 blah.
Well, that's also like a very particular story arc. That's what romance novels are. Here's the guy that's complicated and mysterious, but it's not a very good romance novel if he stays complicated and mysterious.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like the story ends in him arriving at this evolution where he can be trusted and all that stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing with the victim mentality. That there has to be we just call it the arc. It's like, the person it was really hard. Things got really hard, and then they got into sniffing glue, and that turned into.
This is a pretty typical, tried and true story arc.
Sniffing glue, and they just kept sniffing glue until they were homeless and they died, and their mom has a broken heart. And the end. It's like.
Not the movie you want to watch.
No. No.
We talked about this a little bit while I was in one of the certifications, but the comic book series, The Watchmen?
No, and I remember you mentioning it.
Yeah. I guess I'm repeating myself, but nobody else.
I repeat myself more than...
Nobody else heard this except for you and I.
Yeah.
But you provide some great tools, and there's a community of people on these certifications, but then it's kind of like you're a part of the Army infantry in the 1800s, and you're in the fort, but then like Kevin Costner and Dancing with Wolves, like you go off to your own little plot of land and you're by yourself. Great movie. What's your strategy, maybe even for yourself, right? So the quote is like, who watches the watchmen, right? Who coaches the coaches? And I've found myself not paying as much attention at times to the stories in my head, not being able to snap out of the victim mentality as quickly as I did on the the Zoom calls. And what is your, and maybe this is like for anybody that's gone through the Enlifted or has been awakened to a better way of thinking about your thoughts. What advice do you have? And you said it a little bit, right? Hey, some of it's just like writing it out. And I heard you say that you continue to do that for yourself. But do you have any other bits of wisdom or framework that you think is helpful? Haven't done this as long as you've done it.
Really, really, really stretch out the exhale. That's I mean, how broad do we want to get on this podcast?
Broad as you want.
Broad and raw.
I got my scuba certification.
Okay.
To quote the immortal Mark England, I'll go as deep as the participant wants to go, but no deeper.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad passed away
Sorry to hear that.
on September 6th. And he and I were very tight. And Enlifted has his stamp of approval once he got his head around it. Because he was like, when I first told him, I was like, hey man, there's a glitch in the English language is a slave language. There's a glitch
What
in the
the
language.
hell are you doing?
He goes, dude, he's this hillbilly, man. Hillbilly, football player, business guy, cool dude. He's like, you're gonna teach English people to speak English. I was like, well, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound all that flashy, but yeah, he eventually got it. And his health was declining. He was in a walker which is crazy to see because he was huge and stud athlete. And from Christmas last year till September 6th, and there's a saying in the fight game: it's the shots you don't see coming that hurt the most. And we saw this coming, yeah. So Sunday, no, it wasn't a Sunday. It was September. It was a Wednesday. Wednesday morning, 3:45 a.m. My stepmom come, and I'm out in I put a little dojo set up out in the garage when I'm at the farm. It's where I stay. It's a cool spot. It's mission control. So she comes out and he had started hospice on Saturday, and we thought it was going to be a Jimmy Carter thing. Jimmy Carter has been on hospice for a year and finally came off because dude won't die. He's like 80,
boring.
96. Yeah, seriously, man. What are you doing, Jimmy? Get back in the game, bro. And so he goes on hospice on Saturday. I didn't expect to talk about this, by the way. So it's cool. So it's fresh. Wednesday morning, my stepmom comes out and bangs on the door about 3:45, and she goes, "I think he's dead." And I get up and I go, shit. Put my clothes on and I walk in there and I put my hand on his chest. It's nothing. My hand under his nose. Nothing. And I look at her and I go, he's gone. Oh, what's just on a psychopathic side note, I heard her say think. I think he's dead. I heard her say that. I heard the soft talk there. I was like, oh, let me guess, he is.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just loses it, and that kicks off a whole series of events. And we're going to get to the exhale here. Because I'm telling you, man, manicured language and good breathing, it can see you through whatever. So I got checked, dude. I got my coaching skill set checked because that's another reason I love this stuff so much. It's not like it only works for your clients, okay? Like you study this stuff, and you also get, like when you're coaching people, you're getting better with your words too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I sit with him for about 10 minutes, holding his hand and looking at him, and I walk out the door, and it just comes out of my mouth. I'm ready. It's the words, I'm ready, just come out of my mouth. And I was like, I observed them more than said them. I was like, that's interesting. And Hearst pulled up, took him out an hour later, and I didn't tell anybody for a week. I made all my classes, and it was completely full. Like I was booked out all day for weeks. But that first week, I didn't tell anybody. I made all my classes. Dude, I was on the Power Monkey podcast about 4 hours after that. They don't know that. They might now. Because that was in the afternoon. That happened this morning. I made all my classes. I made all my meetings, all my podcasts, all my sessions. And I mean, all hell broke loose, dude. Like people were pulling up into the driveway, and I've got to get off a coaching call and go console somebody, and they're snotting all over me. And then I get back on and put the headset on. I was like, and when was the first time you felt that feeling of anxiety and pressure in your chest? And it's not that I'm a disconnected, cold bastard from my emotions and feelings. It's quite the opposite. I was like, okay, here we are, here we go. And I know what he would have wanted. He would have wanted me to do my fucking job. And so what I've noticed is, I keep doing that. Long exhales moved me through that so smooth. Long exhales. So it's when people take a sigh, they normally do this. Can you hear the discomfort in that? You want to do the exact opposite. And that kept me breathing well, which added to my ability to stay focused on what I needed to, what I wanted to. And that was a way of me celebrating my dad's life, you know? And so we had his gone away party 3 weeks ago. I gave I wrote his obituary in between classes. It's like, and I've also had this guy Casey Pepper. He came to our event. We're not an events company, and we do one once a year. If you can swing it next year, buddy, please come. It's fun. At about 75 people in Richmond. That was 3 weeks ago. It was October 6th and 7th and 8th, and my dad passed a month before, and I dedicated my talk to him, and Casey Pepper got up there the day after, or when we were wrapping up. We were all in the cool spot in the Omni, and he goes for the first time, he goes, well, I got here, and it's just, I didn't know what to do with my hands. I'm a rugby player. It's just, every time it's like, we need to be drinking, but no one was drinking. And then he goes, 5 minutes later, I was just engrossed in this great conversation, and everything was, he goes, and you've done Brandon Powell's breath work, right? Have you done one of those? And so Brandon and I, we performed, did our workshop the night before, Saturday. And I had everybody write a thank you letter to themselves. First and last name, and 4-step it. Dude, it cracked a lot of people. And so Casey Pepper got up the next day, and he just described his experience. He goes, it was the first time I ever cried like a man. And I interrupted. I was like, dude, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but I know what you're fucking talking about. Because I did that about 2 weeks ago with my dad. Because if you look at it, most people their language retards them. And I use the word accurately. Retard is to impede the development of. Most people's language retards their development, and we get stuck crying like little kids, even though we're in these big bodies. And what does that look like? Crying, it doubles us up, and you can hear that it's very high in the chest. It's like like that. That's chest breathing. That is. If someone keeps working with their story and their breathing, the way they emote will develop. It will mature. And I had that experience about 2 weeks after my dad passed. And I wasn't fighting it. I was like, this thing's going to hit. And when it does, I welcome it. And I was in the bathroom, and I cried standing up, and I didn't have to think to do it. It was just my chest was up and back, and I was taking these long, like, while I'm and dude, my chest got super hot, and like all the top of my head, and yes, I was sad and like grieving and crying, but it felt good, dude. It felt good. The story came out.
Yeah. I also have had similar experiences of having to redefine what emotions mean and expressing those. And, I'm sure you're the same. I'm sure most males are the same, where, for most of your life, crying was associated with weakness. Crying was associated with being a pussy. And to fully embrace your masculinity and to say, this is an energy release, and I'd no sooner try to stop me defecating than me having to release this energy in this way. And what I hear you say is like to just let that happen in a way that's really healthy versus, like the child example of crying. It's almost like trying to prevent something from happening. There's like resistance in that happening versus just like, yeah, it's totally cool. It's totally great that I'm experiencing this thing the same way that I feel this light on my face, or any other thing that to not attach like a value judgment to, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, 1,000%. And we inherit our parents' emoting strategies. It's like what happens most of the time when children are having emotions? Parents shut it down. Okay, because they're not comfortable with their emotions. Okay, and that was me crying. I hope it happens again. It's like I'm not afraid of feeling that stuff. Okay, I look forward to that happening again. If it does, if it doesn't, I'm good either way. That was me, because the dude knocked it out of the park, and I got all the hugs and encouragement that I'll ever need. And so I was emoting as celebrating his life, as opposed to crying about his death. Those are two very different things. And it's the same thing with the fitness industry. I mean, most people's fitness practice is a punishment. If somebody walks in the gym and their breath is trapped in the chest, they're there. And if you look at the words, that was a killer workout. Oh, we got destroyed. What are some of the other ways that people?
I got smoked. Yeah.
All this stuff. And y'all are leading the this is not going to come out of Planet Fitness or something like that. They'll be pulling the lunk alarm 10 years from now. But as we add in the story component of fitness and the breath unlocks and people come in already breathing well, then their fitness practice turns into a celebration of them being able to do it.
Yes.
Instead of, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to punish myself for an hour for not being good enough for all these made up things in my fucking head.
Yeah. What a terrible way to live your life. And just like you were saying earlier, it's like I can only say that with great conviction because I was that. You said it in our first
too.
introduction. Victim mentality is it's the most potent pre-workout there is.
Dude, it's got, Rip Fuel ain't got nothing on the victim mentality. I'm going old school.
Almost
Ultimate
as good
Orange.
as No Explode.
Yeah, no,
Almost
is that
as
what the
good.
kids take these days? No Explode? Yeah. Or like whatever it is these days was Ultimate Orange and Ripped Fuel.
Check 3D. What did you think you meant by "I'm ready"? Have you thought back and wondered like what does that even mean?
Good question. I have. Are your parents alive?
They are.
Both?
Mhm.
Yeah, both of mine have passed. That's an interesting feeling, dude. It was, and my mom at 20, and my dad at 47. Yeah, my mom, she died of ovarian cancer. It depends on what mood I'm in. I could also say that she used Johnson & Johnson's talcum powder for most of her adult life and got ovarian cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that shit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a class action lawsuit about that.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that product created ovarian cancer and sold the crap out of it anyway. So it's like, what really got her, huh? And then, yeah. So that's I'm ready to be out front. Like, I'm ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever this Enlifted thing wants me to be. And the freedom in there comes from if someone said, okay, this is the level of the game that you're going to play at for the rest of your 50 years. Okay, cool. I'm waking up, I'm going to work. Okay. This is the amount of hours you're going to work per week. This is the amount of revenue that you're going to earn. Cool. Or this is going to be a 9-figure business. I'm ready for that too. And that's freeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm doing this thing. If the wheels fall off, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to do this thing and see what happens because I've got discipline and I've got curiosity. I've got discipline and I've got curiosity. Now, and you know where I'm about to say. So most people are praying for motivation and inspiration, which compared to resignation and insecurity and apathy, I'll take that. Of course, I'll take that. But discipline and curiosity mop the floor with motivation and inspiration, okay? Because you got to wait till that shit shows up. I don't have to wait to be disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to wait to keep asking myself the questions that keep me curious. And you put those two things together, discipline and curiosity, and you can do something for 50 years. I can do something for 50 years. I will do this for 50 years. With that engine in the tank or that gas in the tank, that kind of fuel. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for. There are things that I'm ready for that I don't know I'm ready for, if that makes sense. It's like, because I say those words and I can see what I'm talking about, and then there's other things. It's like, I got this, okay? I'm going to make some mistakes, of course, okay? Get some things wrong, but let's get it on, man. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way that feels. Another way of saying it, I'm ready enough. Because there is a difference between ready and ready enough.
Man, way to bring it full circle. That's good.
You want my moleskin story?
Yes.
So
and then we'll close, and we can give them a call to action, however
we'll do
is
something.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of things. It's one of the reasons why Enlifted works. Is Enlifted is Enlifted partly because of my incredible simplicity. It's almost comical. And then there's also the part where that trait, I get very confused about things sometimes. And I thought for 20 years, I only got closure on this past year. I thought that moleskin journals were moleskins. And I would rack my brain, literally give myself a headache thinking about how big the factories would have to be, the farms for moles. So I was like, you take the skin off of a mole, and it's not going to be any bigger than half of your fucking thumb. And I go into Barnes and Nobles, and they've got stacks of really big moleskins. I'm like, they have to have millions of moles I'm serious, Spencer, to service. Where do they get the moles from? There has to be a mole industrial complex in order. I honestly, I thought there was like stadiums full of like stacks of.
Did you feel outraged too? Just that for the plight of the mole. How are they even selling this?
I didn't want to get that far into
commercial store versus the black market.
I've gotten militant about things, and I was like, I just don't have time to save moles. It's like I'm not gonna go vegan and say no moleskin notebooks. But I seriously brought that up on a team meeting when we were talking about journals. And there were moleskins. I'm like, where do they get all the moles from, Kimberly? And she's like, that's not what that is, Mark.
Well, hey, who knows? Maybe there's
I thought
somebody
there were
out
mole
there.
farms. I thought they were like incredibly, yeah.
Well, thanks for setting the record straight.
Yeah. I needed to come clean.
Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
I could keep going for a long time, listening.
There's something about doing shows in person.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, do you do them virtually or are they all in person?
We have, our preference is this, just because
1000%.
I like it so much better.
Dude, it's yes. Next time I average Austin once a year. Okay, whether I drive or fly in, I'm going to invite myself on.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd like to invite myself on yours as well.
Please come on the show.
Well, there you go.
See how easy that is?
Didn't take much effort at all.
Yeah.